every type of luxury at your fingertips. Actually, can I sit on the ground? Is that okay? My dad's here. We're sitting. Can I sit on the ground? Okay, cool. I don't know if there's like that's not going to be on anyway, right? Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll sit on the ground. Yeah, sitting there, it feels so weird. Oh, so much better. Okay. Even my dad wasn't here, it still feels weird. So Asya radiallahu anha, what happens with her? With her, we see that all of a sudden, Hazrat Asya radiallahu anha, she has this, what seems to be a good marriage. Actually, the Mufassirun, they talk about this. How was the marriage between them? And it seems like there was some amicable relationship there. How do we know this? Because when Musa alayhi salam floated down the river, and all of a sudden the servant finds him, and then goes to his two masters, the Fir'aun and Asya radiallahu anha, and presents this child. Some of the Mufassirun mentioned that the child grabbed the beard of the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh said, this will be my destruction. He knew this was going to be his destruction. And some narrations also mention that at that point, she said, what? No, it's just a child, he doesn't know what he's doing. In fact, she says what? We should keep this child, qurratu aynin walak. Will be the coolness of my eyes and the coolness of your eyes. The Pharaoh's not sure. But because of the love of his wife, he actually accepts the child. Despite the fact that a child born to Bani Israel in that year should have been slaughtered, based upon the rules of the kingdom at that point. So they had a good relationship. Eventually, she turns towards belief. Now she's seeing her husband, the Pharaoh, being oppressive, harming people. She probably feels isolated in the home. She probably feels very much guilty for all that wealth that's been taken through oppression from the people. And now towards the end of her life, and she doesn't know it's the end of her life yet, she sees one of the women of her community, the hairdresser, the daughter of the Pharaoh, who one day when combing the hair of the daughter of the Pharaoh, the comb slips from her hand, and she takes, sometimes we say subhanallah or something like that. She says by the Lord of Musa, and at that point the daughter says, what, you don't take my father as being God? And she said, no. And then so what happens in a very long conversation, if you read the story of Isra and Mi'raj, you find the narration there when the Prophet ﷺ was flying over a specific part of the land, he smelled a very fragrant, beautiful smell, and he didn't know what it was. He asked Jibreel alayhi salam, so Jibreel alayhi salam said, that's the burial spot of the wife, the hairdresser of the daughter of the Pharaoh. And what happens was she maintained her iman even in the face of the Pharaoh threatening her and her children were burned alive, and she was also burned alive. They were melted alive within boiling oil, according to most narrations. One narration mentions that she was actually chopped up. But regardless, she had one wish. What was that wish? When I die, bury all of our body parts together. The Pharaoh said, I'll honor your wish. From that area of sacrifice, what happens was that a fragrance came out that was so compelling, even the Prophet noticed it, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now Asya, when she sees this, she tells the Pharaoh, you think you're hot stuff? You think you're so great? I'm also part of the followers of Musa alayhi salam. So the Pharaoh calls everyone back. When he calls everyone back, he says, there's a matter in my household that could have been kept hidden. I'm going to make it public for you. My wife took iman on the Lord of Musa, so I am going to also punish her. And so he spikes her hands and feet into the ground, gives her a chance to come back to the deen of his deen, and she says no, she wants to remain on the true deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then he has her skinned alive. And as she's bleeding to death, she makes the dua that's captured within what? The end of Surah At-Tahrim. رَبِّ بِنِي لِي عِنْدَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ. My Lord, build for me a palace near you in paradise. Allama Sabuni rahmatullah alayhi, he says, Ni'ma dua Asya. What a great dua Hazrat Asya radiallahu anha made. Why? اختارت الجار قبل الدار. She chose her neighbor before she chose her home. You know, what do? We find a nice home, then we say, oh, does it fit in a good school district? Is it near a masjid? We find the home first. It's a great price, it's a nice home, it's my dream home, and we get stuck to it. But what does she do? She put her home second. She put her neighbor first. رَبِّ ابْنِي لِي عِنْدَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ. My Lord, bless for me, build for me a palace near you in paradise. So why did I mention this? Anyone who sees this on the outside say, what a horrible marriage she had. No, what a great marriage she had. Because if she married a believer, maybe she would have had an easier life in terms of her death, but she would not have become one of the 4 perfect women. It was by going through tribulation, and despite that tribulation, still submitting to Allah and giving her life up for the sake of Allah, supporting Musa alayhi salam, those things made her from the perfect women. So sometimes a person will go into the marriage and they think they found the one, and they'll get divorced. And actually that person was best for them. That's why the istikhara made it good for them. And sometimes a person will maybe have an arranged marriage, or someone recommends someone for marriage, and they don't know how it's going to turn out, and it turns out very well for them. And sometimes the opposite occurs. They choose someone and it goes awry, it goes bad. And sometimes it's arranged and it goes awry, it goes bad. We don't know. But why did I begin with the idea that there's only one, which is Allah? Because we're not marrying for ourselves, we're marrying for Allah. Yeah, it's easy for me 22 years down the line to say this. When I was younger, I didn't have the same sentiment. But hindsight is 20/20. And this is why it's so important to listen to our elders. Because when our elders advise, they don't, for the most part, advise for their well-being. They advise for our well-being out of their experience. So when we search for love, and we search for, I'm trying to remember how it was worded, finding the one, growing in love. When we're looking at this idea of the one, it has to be Allah. And the marriage is for the sake of Allah. And then at that point, you'll find the one in this world for the true one. Now, the second part of it says growing in love. Love in English, as it is for Arabic as well, it's a verb. It's also a verbal noun, it's also a noun, but it's a verb. When you say you love someone, you're doing something. And that means it requires work. It's a fi'l, it's an action. A person can't just say, I love you. You know, they tell their teachers, I love you so much, you're my favorite teacher, and they never come to class, never do their homework. They tell their parents, I love you so much, they never visit. They tell their spouse, I love you so much, and then after Isha, they're out hanging out with their friends all the time. They don't go home and help with the kids. That's not professing true love, because love is a verb. In fact, in the Arabic language, the word for love is what? Hub. And the word for a seed is habba. And they come from the same root. Why? Because a seed doesn't grow by itself. A seed doesn't grow by itself. You have to take a seed. You have to then put it in its proper environment. Then you have to nurture it for it to grow. There's a lot of work required over there. And two people may be quote unquote madly in love, but that love is not going to result in the end love. Because in Arabic, according to some scholars, there's 11 different levels of love. Some say 13, some say 14. There's shaghaf, there's ishq, there's hub, there's hawa. There's all these different types of love that are there. And every stage of love is going to be greater than the previous stage of love. Because there's more that's going to be returned based upon that love. When you have a seed and you just put it into the ground, it doesn't make a difference. You know, sometimes my kids will take like an apple seed or watermelon seed and put it in the ground. Like, Baba, it's not growing. Because it wasn't the right environment for it. Or you didn't take care of it. There has to be multiple things that cause the love to occur. So now, let's go through the actual marriage part itself. So how do you find the one? Meaning the one whom Allah Ta'ala wants you to be married to. There's a scholar who visited this masjid before. When his daughter was looking to get married, he came and said, can you help me find a spouse for my daughter? I said, okay, I'll help you find. So I mentioned someone for him, and he said it's a good idea, so we went forward with it. And it just wasn't, from the istikhara, it just didn't look like it was going to turn out well. Like the marriage won't work out. So they were still in talks, and it wasn't going further. So he told me, can you speak to that brother for me? I said, yes, I will. He said, can you just tell him that, are you interested or not? That's all I need to know. So, and he said, tell him that, look, these things are written. They're maktub, they're written. If it's not in your interest, no problem. You don't have to feel bad for me, I'm your teacher, etc., that I asked you to marry my daughter. If it's not written, it's not written. So we're going to begin with that. These things Allah Ta'ala has written. And so when we're making the efforts and we're looking for someone, we should know that sometimes someone or something that we're looking for in life may not be written for us, but in the hereafter we'll get it. And someone or something that we're not looking for in life may be best for us. So what do we search for? The Prophet ﷺ has mentioned many things that we look for. In one narration, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned تُنْكِحُ الْمَرْأَةَ لِأَرْبَعَ, that a woman is married for 4 reasons. Now what are these 4 reasons? For some people it's wealth. لِمَالِهَا. Now wealth is very important. And we shouldn't think that this is not going to be important. Because when we're younger, what do we think? Oh, love is enough. If love was enough, I just had do a nikah yesterday, and the woman was a convert. She just converted a few weeks back. And so her parents were there, his parents were there. Her parents aren't Muslim, but they were there. They were very supportive of the marriage as well. So I told her, I'm going to be acting as your wali, your wakil. And acting as this, I'm going to have to play the role of your father. What is your mahar? She said, I don't have a mahar. So I called the groom in. Sit down. He sat down. And the father was there as well. And he was very, very nice, mashallah. I said, what's the mahar that you're offering? And he said, we haven't decided one. I'm like, I can't do the nikah without a mahar. So he said, what do you think? And I said, I'm not going to dictate it. I asked her, what do you think? She said, I don't know, $500? So I said, look, now if this is me years back, I'd be like, yeah, 500 is a good number. Like, look, if my daughter was getting married for $500, I would say no. She said, why? Like, what if the husband passes away? What if something happens, he can't work anymore? What if you are at a point where you don't want to be married to one another anymore? Something could happen. The mahar provides you honor, but also security. You have to be aware of the fact that there has to be some financial security. So then she's like, okay, about 1,000. So I smiled again. Now look, if your mahar was around that, I have no problem with it. I'm not saying give 20, 30, 50, 80, 100, $200,000. I'm saying you should think this through. So the father said, I just want to say one thing. She can choose whatever she wants. I have no problem with it. But we're going to give her a lot of gold, and she's actually been gifted it. So part of our intention is we want to give part of the mahar as her gold, and we're not going to touch it afterwards. So then I spoke to her, are you content with this, etc. She said, yeah, and the value was quite high. So I said, okay, no problem at that point. But what is this? لِمَالِهَا. We have to consider wealth. Now for the guys, you're thinking, well, you're talking about a woman, why do I have to worry about her wealth? I'm not asking you to become like, what do they call it, like a sugar mama or something like that, like someone who's going to work and earn money and just give it to you so you can stay home all day. I'm not asking for that. I don't need to get addicted to Xbox, whatever is out there, or PlayStation, whatever is out there, or the Switch or the Wii, and then start playing that and she works. I'm not asking for that. But what I've learned in life is that if you are on 2 different financial levels, it's hard to be able to move forward together. So part of what you should marry for is wealth. If he's from an extremely wealthy family, or she is, and the other person isn't, yeah, they can get along, but the expectations will be very different. For example, husband marries a very, very wealthy wife, and he's from a middle-class family. Now she's seeing all of her siblings go on vacation every 3 months they're going for Umrah, and every 6 months they're going to Turkey, every 9 months they're going to, whatever other place, etc. And then now she's not saying anything, because she's a good wife, but the husband's like, I think she feels it. Now the husband creates a story in his mind. She must be feeling in her heart, I don't take her anyway. So now then Shaitan, he causes the conversation. So now the person's thinking this, she didn't say anything yet. And then he thinks to himself, is Shaitan doing this? Why did she think this way? Didn't she know who I was when I was getting married? She hasn't said one word yet, but already the debate is starting in the husband's mind. Why does she think this way? Didn't she know better? Now the wife innocently, months later says, Alhamdulillah, I've been earning money as well, and I want to use my money so we can go for Umrah. The husband's already, this flame has been lit inside of him. What does he say? Well, don't you think I could afford it? Why are you so dunyawi anyway? We just went for Hajj 3 years ago. Why? And she just wants to do Umrah. But because there is a financial disparity, people don't see eye to eye. So it doesn't mean you can't marry someone wealthy if you're not wealthy, or vice versa. But you have to keep in mind when the Prophet said people marry for wealth, there's a munasabah that occurs. There's a connection that occurs based upon wealth. So, and this is why mahar is not a sign in our deen. But in the books of fiqh, what do we see? If you don't know what mahar to give, you ask the wife, the bride, what did your sister receive? What did your other sister receive? Let's go based upon that, because that's the kufu. That is going to be the, how's a good way to translate kufu? The compatibility based upon circumstance, or the circumstantial compatibility. That's necessary. Jamaliha, beauty is necessary. Beauty is absolutely necessary. Why is beauty necessary? Look, when the Prophet ﷺ, when Hazrat Hamna radiallahu anha was getting married, there was a whole situation about her getting married, and then a person came to the Prophet, she came to the Prophet and she sought advice. This goes back to the first one. And a proposal came, I believe it was Hamna radiallahu anhu, I'm forgetting. And one person was a man named Muawiyah, and there's another man. And the Prophet started advising, so-and-so is stingy. So-and-so, he uses the stick. He was saying these things about one another. Why would he mention stinginess if it's all about the deen? Because wealth is a real thing. Wealth is a real thing. If you are a woman whose father has always, oh, my beti, my princess, and always sort of allowed you to have what you have, and then you find the one, and then you say, I'm going to marry him, and he doesn't have the same financial attribute as the father, be very careful. Later, it's going to come up. It's going to come up. If your brothers have always been there, they're older, and they say, oh, you want to go out for Eid? I'll take you out, no problem. And then you're marrying someone who's a bit stingy, be careful. The brothers will come up in conversation because everyone compares. Naturally, even if you don't compare someone else, they will compare themselves to someone. What I mean, Aisha radiallahu anha, such a wonderful person, such an intelligent, beautiful, eloquent, righteous individual. Who was she always comparing herself to? Khadija radiallahu anha, and she never met her. She didn't live with her as a co-wife, because that's natural. Jamaliha, beauty. One of the muftis who's visited your masjid before, or our masjid before, he sat down and he said, Saad, I have advice. Now look, this is not my advice, this is his. There's some wisdom in it, but in the end it's your decision. He said, if I ever meet, if some guy is asking me whom I should marry, like in terms of beauty, I always say, if you're a 10, marry a 7 or an 8. 10 like out of 10, like your handsomeness. If you're an 8, marry like a 6 or a 5. Because if you're like an 8 and she's a 10, then she'll always have the upper hand. Now I found this funny, but there's some truth to it. What's this truth? Beauty is fleeting. It's going to come and go. However, beauty is also important. The Prophet ﷺ, when a man came to him declaring that he's going to get married, the Prophet ﷺ, what was the thing that he asked him? Did you look at her? Did you look at her? Now, why would I look at, oh Messenger of Allah, for the deen, for the sake of Allah, that's why I'm marrying her. But the Prophet knows for the sake of Allah. And he knows while she might be mutahajjid, she might be someone who prays tahajjud, she might be someone who fasts, etc. If you're not attracted to her, there's a whole part of marriage that's not going to work. So the Prophet said, go look at her. And then he said, what? Verily in the eyes of the women of Ansar is something. Some scholars of hadith, they mention that means that some of the women of Ansar, they had sort of a cross-eyed look. And some of the scholars mentioned that the women of Ansar, they had a very different color of their eyes. And that was very attractive to some, but not others. So look at the person. Beauty is important. There's a person with whom I had to deal with recently who he got married. And when he got married for the sake of deen. Now, please don't take this the wrong way. Actually, two people come to mind. One whom I spoke to last month and one whom I spoke to a few months prior. The one I spoke to a few months prior, unfortunately, ended in divorce. The one I spoke to last month, alhamdulillah, it's still going. In both cases, he wanted someone who had a specific type of leaner body. But the person's deen was very good, and he thought, well, deen comes first. They both thought deen comes first. And in that case, what happened? The first one had ended in divorce. Why did it end in divorce? He couldn't get himself to appreciate her. And it's not fair for her either. It's not fair for her either. And you might think, well, brother, who's going to marry all the people who are a little more too skinny or too plump, or whatever the case may be? Everyone has their own preferences. You know, I don't want to compare men or women to steak, but if you go eat food, some people like a little more fat in the steak, some people like less fat in the steak. You make your burger, you want an 80-20 mix of ground beef, you want a 90-10 leaner mix, whatever the case may be. People have different preferences. There's one brother who I met a few years ago, looking to get married, so he said, can you have anyone suggest? I'm like, okay, what are you looking for? So he started going through this and this and said, and she should be plump, she should be hardy, she should be healthy. I said, okay, why? He's like, because I want a lot of women. I don't want a little woman. I started laughing at him in a good way. I said, okay, I'll look for someone for you like that. One other person came to me and said, Brother Saad, I want someone with a lot of hair. I'm like, I can't help you there. I don't see her without her hijab. He's like, I want hair, big hair, afro hair, curly hair. That's what I want. Like, I can help you in terms of maybe some circumstance, but I can't see under her hijab. But people all have different things. Mufti Azimuddin and I were talking like a year ago. We were talking about the struggle of the ummah and guys being tempted. So he said, how long do I have? 45 minutes? So and that means I started about 40. So I have about 20 minutes left. Okay, cool. No. No one liked it. Everyone's sitting for the tea and snacks. I would say, I give khutbah, I'm an imam, and so I give khutbah weekly. And so I always get these compliments, brother, your khutbah was so great. So I'm like, oh, well, what was good about it? They said, you ended right on time. That's always the thing I get, because I feel bad. I don't want people to be fired because of me. In my nikah khutbahs, they're 5 minutes. They don't like to go long. Everyone's like, that's it? I'm like, yeah, that's it. Get married, move on. You're not here for me. I'm not here for you. So let's all move on. So Mufti Azim and I were talking. And when we were talking, interesting conversation. He said, Saad, I don't know what to do anymore. I'm like, why? He said, a brother came to me with struggles for lowering his gaze. I'm like, okay. So what did you advise him? He's like, well, I advised him, amongst the things to physically lower his gaze. And I said, so what was wrong with that? He said, but Mufti Saab, I have a fetish for feet. I love feet. So if I lower my gaze, I get more attracted to them. So he's like, Saad, what do we do now? I'm like, I don't know what we do now. But the idea was that people have different attractions. So jamaliha. Now, I'm going to advise parents as well. Parents, we should be aware of the fact. I have boys who are in their teens now, and so soon shall be marriageable. Actually, I don't know how soon, that's up to them. But the idea is that whom we find beautiful, they might not find beautiful. So be careful about this. Be careful about this. Maybe tell your son, like I had a father who came to me and said, I'm advising my son to get married. But my son is finding people who he wants. I know it's not good for him. So I'm like, okay, what's the issue? He said, I want my son to marry someone much younger than him. Like 7, 10, 12, 13 years younger than him. So I'm thinking, man, if for his age, that's like a teenager. Like, I don't know how, it's not going to work. And then so he's like, because look, when we get older, then our wives also age. But if they're younger, then as we age, they'll still look young to us. And I was like, I guess that's true. But what I was trying to tell the father was that, look, just because that's your feeling doesn't mean that's his feeling. You might be right, but he might not find attractive what you feel to be attractive. So you can give your suggestions, but sometimes, you'll hear parents say, but, someone more gori, right? Like someone more, someone who's lighter, someone who's skinnier, someone who's this, someone who's taller, this and that. That might not be that person's attraction. So let the child have say on what beauty is. You can help in other ways, you can advise, but let the child, because a child's standard of beauty is different than your standard of beauty. And this is not a country difference, this is not even generation difference, this is a person-to-person difference. I met two brothers, and these brothers, one brother was telling me how he wants to marry someone who is I think he used the word hefty. He's like, and then the other brother, I forgot what he said. But he said, like, I want someone who's thin. And then the other brother, like there was 3 or 4 brothers that were sitting at the parking lot, not this parking lot, masjid, or outside the masjid. But they were just describing different things. I'm like, okay, I'll help you out. But the idea is let them choose. Now women, this is also true for you as well. You have to also look to see, is he handsome? I know this is not pushed upon women often, but women, it's the same thing. You have attraction as well. And I've heard one of the women say something very interesting. They said, how will I know if he's going to be handsome later? So the same thing, look to the father. Look to the mother for the guys. If they've maintained some semblance of beauty, then they'll age well as well. But if they, within 5 years of their marriage, you're looking at you ask people in the community about the family, oh yeah, within 2 or 3 years of the marriage, they all ballooned up and they all gained all this marriage weight and they never lost it again, then that's probably going to happen to the kid as well. So women, you have to also think, what's a standard of beauty? For some women, it might be he's very muscular. For some people, you're looking for the very thin, intelligent type of person. For some people, you want to look for the dad bod or whatever the case may be. You decide. But don't let others push it upon you. لِمَالِهَا جَمَالِهَا حَسَبِهَا. Look at the lineage and the family connection. Now, we're not looking at the way the Arabs would do per se and look to see what's this lineage, but at the same time, family is important. If you're someone who is, for example, never had a brother, and you're marrying a husband who only has brothers, I'm going to tell you, this is going to be a rough ride. Because already you're not accustomed interacting with men. And they're not accustomed to interacting with women. And there may be a line there that will accidentally be crossed, not a haram, halal way, but just even for comfort. Or for example, you come from a family that's more liberal, and the other person comes from a family that's more conservative. Have fun with that. Now, oh brother, don't worry. I'm going to take care of him. I'm going to make him conservative just like me. Let me give you some advice. No one changes anyone in marriage. It doesn't happen illa masha'Allah. The husband's thinking, the groom's thinking, oh, once she gets married, I'm going to have her wear a hijab and she'll wear jilbab. And what's happening? He stops coming to the masjid now. Because the effect that you think you'll have, the adverse usually occurs. She's thinking, oh, I'm going to make him into a madrasa man. That's not going to happen. He's going to have you eating at non-dhabiha places faster than the other way around. Now, I will say, usually, the husband gets more affected by the wife, in my experience with people in the community, but both ways. So look to the family. See, is there family compatibility? Now, it doesn't mean they all have to be the same way, they all go on Jamaat together, they're roommates and mothers. That's not what I'm asking for. Is there willingness to accept the other side? Is there willingness to meet at a middle ground? Is there respect for the other person's practice and faith? If that is there, then that is a big deal. That is a big deal. Sometimes a person looks superficially, have so much munasabah. For example, they're both in tabligh. They're both in tabligh, and one person might side with, I know it's getting a little sticky now, some might side with the shura, some might side with Saad, etc. And then that might be looking on surface, munasabah, but internal is conflict. So you have to think about these things in advance. And then the Prophet said, look to the deen. Then deeniha. فَاظْفُرْ لِذَاتِ دِينِ تَرْبَتْ يَدَاكَ. Choose for religion, may your hands become dusty. This means what? Some of the scholars mentioned, like, you roll up your sleeves and get your hand dirty, like, that's a sign of success. There's different interpretations of what this means. But choose for deen. But deen should not be your only decision. If all others don't work and the deen works for you, sometimes that's not the best choice. Because eventually you're not going to find the person attractive, or there will be some other conflict elsewhere. Look for deen as the main priority, and the other things are going to what? Help in make that deen complete. Similarly for women, the Prophet ﷺ had encouraged, namely what? That you look for someone who has a good character, good deen. We know in some narrations, people who are generous. So this is what you should be looking for. In the end, don't look for yourself in marriage. No one wants to marry themselves. Maulana Pampur, Mufti Pampur, rahmatullah alayhi, I remember he said very clearly when he visited our madrasa in Zambia, he said that when you get married, in general, someone should be more aggressive, someone should be more passive. Someone should be more hot-headed, someone should be more calm. Someone should be more outgoing, someone should be less outgoing. Because if you're both very passive, what do you want to do tonight? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What should we do? I don't know. Let's think about it. Okay, I don't know. And then nothing's happening. Where do you want to go to eat? I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. What do you think? And then both people are just sitting there starving to death. That's not how it works. There should be someone who takes a little bit of control. So Mufti Saad, what he was mentioning is that compliments. Because the word zoj in the Arabic language means a pair. It doesn't mean a spouse per se. It means a pair. And if you look at it in this world, what do we have? We have night and day. They're complements for one another. They're not the same. We have winter and summer. They're complements. We have fall and spring and fall, and they're similar, but they're complements. They're not the same. So husbands and wives will often not be the same. So if you're like, oh, that person's not like me, that's actually okay, as long as certain things are fulfilled. Now I have two more things I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to wrap this up. Number one, now once the marriage occurs, the marriage, you have to keep in mind, you have to work on it. Growing in love. So the first stage of love in the Arabic language is hawa. Hawa means falling. Wan najmi idha hawa. Not the star when it's in love. No. Wan najmi idha hawa. The star when it falls. The shooting star. So people can fall in love. This is actually acceptable within our linguistic tradition. But it doesn't mean that they'll reach the highest level of love. That means they're at hawa. It's a desire. It's a caprice. It's a want. It's a longing. But that's not the highest level of love. And just like a seed, the seed has potential for growth. It has to be put in the proper environment, and then that means there has to be growth. Now, what is proper environment? My mom once gave me advice when I got married. And this advice, I actually didn't like it initially, but later I saw the wisdom in it. Because when I got married, my parents allowed me to get married when I was young. One time, my father and we were at my cousin's engagement in Michigan. And I was 19 years old. And so I went next to my dad, and I sat down next to him, and I said, so Bob, what do you think, 10 years from now? He said, at least 10 years. But I got married when I was 21. My parents accommodated and facilitated me to get married when I was young. Now, when I got married when I was young, my mom told me, and so I thought maybe I can live at home. My mom said, no, you can't live at home. So I was like, why? And she said, because I fear that maybe I will. Maybe I will say something wrong to her accidentally. Or something can happen and that will cause friction. So initially live apart. Later you can move in. And later we did move in for like a year and a half. But like years later, 5, 6 years later, 4 or 5 years later, we moved in. But so initially don't live with the parents. The seed, if you put a seed in gold, will it grow? No, but gold is more valuable than dirt. If you put a seed in saffron, will it grow? No, but saffron is more valuable than dirt. So sometimes for that marriage to grow, you have to find where's the best place for them to be. There's been situations in marriages where I've had to tell the parents in the marriage that, look, they need to move to a different state. They cannot be where you guys are. You have so much overprotection for both of your kids, alhamdulillah, that it's causing tension in their marriage. They need to actually move away from you. And sometimes they need to live in the next door. Sometimes that's the best place. Don't assume that one is right and one is wrong. Certain types of soil, cacti, they don't grow in soil where grass grows. They grow in different regions. And grass doesn't grow in the desert. It grows in different regions. So you have to look at the environment. Where are you putting this seed? Because love will develop on it. Then the seed requires that it's going to be nurtured. So you have to work towards it. Now, what's a piece of advice? Now, this is a piece of advice one of my teachers gave me, and I actually saw in action from my father. My father never once in his life did he ever, that I remember. Now, he could have, but I never saw it once in my life. And I'm 44 years old, and I've been married for 22 years. Never once saw him let my mom pump gas. Not once. Not once. In fact, when we were getting married, my brother and I got married, my sister, of the four, three of us got married relatively at similar times. My dad told my brother, and I still remember this, I don't know what's going to happen to both of you. You don't know how to do anything around the house. Because my dad, he would iron with the perfect crease, and he can cook up a salad, and he can do the laundry, he can do all of that. In fact, I remember a few years ago, I had actually called my father, or I messaged him saying, I think I called, said, when you clean the bathrooms, how do you make sure there's no residue from the Ajax on the sinks? Because when he would clean it, it would sparkle and there'd be no residue. And he's like, I don't remember how I do it, but the whole idea is what? Because now I'm cleaning the bathrooms, right? Like that's you have to get these lessons. So you have to. So I learned from my father and from one of my teachers. He mentioned as well. Don't aim for rights. Oh, my right is this. Okay, well, my right is that. Well, my right is this. My right is that. You'd be fighting the whole time. Aim for khidmah. Serve one another. If the right is over here and if the right is over here and the khidmah is over here, if those of you who are listening online or listening downstairs, my lower hand is the right, my upper hand is the khidmah. If you're already up here, no one's going to care about this because it's already fulfilled. So now you're doing this, and she's like, oh, well, he's doing this, let me do this. And you're like, oh, she's doing this, let me do this. Like my wife, I always get upset, man, why are you cleaning? Like, I just want to take some rest. She's like, I'm not telling you to get up, but she knows my habit. If I see her, I have to get up right away. Okay, let me see if the laundry needs to be done, or the dishes need to be done, or if I have to go mow the lawn, or something has to be done, because I can't sit there while she's doing work. So aim for khidmah. Work towards the deen. Work towards the deen. What do I mean? Work towards marriage, because marriage is half of deen. So work towards marriage. By helping, serving one another, you keep one another happy. By taking care of your bodies, that's a khidmah. To work out, to lose weight. The Prophet ﷺ, "Man kan lahu sha'r," whoever has a sha'ran falyukrimhu, who has hair, they should comb it. I mean, that part's gone, but this part's still here. If you look at my bag, I left in the car, it has a comb. I'm always combing my beard. Why? You have to look good for your spouse. When the Prophet ﷺ used to come into the home, what would he do? He would do miswak before he came in, and he would always smile. This is making an effort, even when he didn't want to smile. So you have to work towards it. You have to listen attentively. The Prophet ﷺ, he was the most silent of mankind. And he would listen in so many narrations. Aisha would be telling him a story, and so would be telling him a story. And he'd just listen. And then he'd throw in a little comment here or there. But effort has to be put in. So some people might be, look, I fell in love. Yeah, some people fall in love before marriage. Is it the highest level of love? No, it's hawa. It's the lowest level. But even then, doesn't mean the marriage will be perfect unless you work on it. And the work has to be done. That's how you can grow in love. And this is why the majority opinion is that Khadija radiallahu anha, she was 40 when the Prophet married her. I know there's another opinion that says she was 27 when the Prophet married her, but she was 40 when the Prophet married her. So when she was 40, by the time he reaches his mid-30s, he's 25 now, she's in her 50s. And he's still in a polygamous society not looking for another spouse. The beauty was there even though it had faded. Why? Because they were so good to one another. And how do we know this? Look at the hadith when the Prophet runs down from the cave. He goes to whom first? Khadija radiallahu anha. And then when he goes to her, she consoles him by saying, oh, don't worry about it. No. Wallahi la yakhzik Allahu abada. Innaka tasir raham wa tahmil kalb wa taqri dayf wa taksib al-ma'adum wa ta'inu ala nawa'ib al-haq. She was scrutinizing his life. 5 beautiful points that they worked on together to grow closer to Allah. I mean, the deen hadn't been revealed yet at that point, but prior to that. So anyway, I said 20, it's 21. I went a minute over. I'll stop over here. Wa akhir da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh Saad again. Inshallah, you can proceed for some tea and snacks, and inshallah rejoin us again after Salat al-Maghrib, inshallah.